But we'll see. Anyways, let's go ahead and move on to our last story of the night, and that is the story of penis worship. Now, penis worship is something that has popped up on the conspiracy iceberg, and of course, it's something that immediately draws your eye because it sounds so weird. And it's actually a fairly cut and dry story with a little twist at the ending. Now, there of course have been cultures that have worshipped penises. It's a sign of fertility. You can, they'll draw it on cave paintings, and that like the obelisk in Egypt has been considered like a fertility thing. There's all sorts of penis-shaped statues in India, or, penis-shaped towers in India, and so on and so forth. So penis worship in and of itself isn't too rare. I wanted to focus on some of the more interesting, weird stuff here. And that was Jesus's foreskin. Now, this is an interesting story because it's something that I never really thought about. I think it's more in the Catholic realm. But when Jesus was born, after 8 days, due to Jewish tradition, he was circumcised. I guess there used to be 8 days after Christmas, the day of the Holy Circumcision. But they don't celebrate it anymore. But anyway, so after 8 days, they circumcised poor little baby Jesus. And in the apocryphal book of Thomas, which is like a book of the Bible that's actually not in the Bible, it's something that isn't considered canon. It's funny, that's where that word comes from. When canonical was a biblical term, a term to refer to the Bible. And now canon refers to is the Alien vs. Predator Requiem canon with the new Predator movie coming out. It's completely ridiculous. But anyway, so the book's non-canonical. They say that they took off his foreskin and then gave it to a guy and said, put this in a box of liquid, not like preserving liquid, and don't sell it, no matter how much anyone offers you, and they're going to offer you a ton of money. So he ends up selling it. And he ends up selling it to Mary Magdalene, of all people, and she's the hooker who ends up becoming Jesus's kind of best friend later on, or confidant later on. But anyway, so you have Jesus's foreskin, and the reason why this is important, and I didn't realize this until I was like halfway through like researching this, because again, I'm not really thinking relics. Catholics are all into their relics. But the story of Jesus is that he dies on the cross. He comes back 3 days later. He's walking around town for a while, and then eventually he flies into the sky. He's drawn back up into heaven. So he didn't die. He had no bones left behind or anything like that, but he left his foreskin behind because that was taken off of him when he was a baby. I mean, obviously fingernail clippings and hair stuff would have been around too. Anything that wasn't on him when he flew away. But now they have this little piece of skin, and they're like, this is the last remaining part, or the last remaining, like, there's hair and fingernail clippings, someone might have those, but this is like the last remaining, like, flesh of Jesus on the planet Earth. The rest of him is gone. And so it had this storied kind of history. It didn't pop up again until 600 AD, when Charlemagne gave it to this pope. He said, hey, thanks for, helping me out, Pope. Here is a gift for you. Opens it up. A little piece of shriveled flesh. What's this? It's nothing. Picked it up at swap meet. It's just Jesus's foreskin. There's been a lot of times with these relics, they kind of pop up everywhere. This one church says they have it. This other church says they have it. And you see that with the Ark of the Covenant, too. There's a couple of churches that claim to have the Ark of the Covenant. And then eventually they kind of settle. It's kind of settled that there's a church in Calcutta that actually has the foreskin that is the one that passed down from the Pope, from Charlemagne to the Pope and so forth. And what's interesting is that people used to make pilgrimages there because it would cure you of all sorts of illnesses, holding it or being around. They probably didn't let them hold it, but you know what I mean? Like being around it, it would help. It would make barren women fertile and it would, help your back and all that stuff. And in 1983, it went missing. In 1983, according to a priest, a group of men broke into his house and stole it, and now nobody knows where it's at. And the theory has always been that the thieves were the Vatican. They were like, you know what, this foreskin is causing way too much trouble for us. It looks ridiculous as far as like we're trying to be like a modern church and we have people praying to a shriveled piece for all that. All we know is like a grapefruit. a rotted apple or something like that. I don't know why foreskin looks like an apple, but Catholic churches like this is causing way too much trouble. They actually threatened to excommunicate anyone who even talked about it. They got so tired of hearing about this stupid foreskin thing. So they took it. That's the theory. It's also interesting to think, though, that in 1983, in the 80s and the 90s, as we were moving forward, if you wanted to clone Jesus, that's what you would have wanted to get your hands on. And that could have been a preemptive thing, too. The Vatican could have been like, yes, we're tired about hearing about the stupid foreskin. It's dumb. It's ridiculous. It makes us look like a bunch of backward pagans. But at the same time, if it is accurate, we should probably get it in our hands. Because if somebody wants to try to do some tomfoolery, that's what I would, that's what they're going to do. They're going to get it and they're going to clone him or whatever. I wonder if he'd be cloned. I wonder if he'd have the beard if you cloned him. And I understand he doesn't pop out of like a cloning chamber in his robes and stuff like that, but like I wonder if there's... And I know that like the typical image of Jesus is the white guy is inaccurate. He was more Middle Eastern, obviously, because he was Jewish, but he still was known for having a beard and all that stuff. It would be interesting. He's cloned. He has holes in his hands. Interesting. It's not interesting. It's absolutely foolish. But anyway, so people worship that little piece of flesh because it was the last remaining part of their God. And I think that's what's interesting is that if you believe that Jesus died and came back to life and is now in heaven and preparing the eternity for you, but you could actually visit a piece of him. That's amazing. Like, I can't think of any other religion that really has that. I think in Islam and in Judaism, you can walk the streets and you can go to the places where these people have been. Did you know in Mecca what it is? It's a meteorite. A meteorite hit the desert, and it's like this holy rock. I don't necessarily want to like visit Mecca just because I don't want to be around that many people. It seems like there's like 1 million people there, and they just walk around in a circle. But I'm sure like to actually look, I think it's like an obsidian meteorite. It's a meteorite that they built a giant cube around, this giant holy structure, and most people don't know this either. Just out of camera, like when they show those shots of Mecca, just out of camera are just hotels and like fast food diners. It's turned into basically like a small tourist city because people have to travel there, and someone's like, hey, let's put up a McDonald's. I don't know if they actually have McDonald's, but just out of the camera shots, it's like a tourist trap. There's just buildings everywhere. It looks really holy. Pan the camera back and you see like a Holiday Inn. That was a clip from our daily podcast, Dead Rabbit Radio. Dead Rabbit Radio is available anywhere that you listen to podcasts. It's daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime news. If you want to hear the full episode that this clip came from, check the link below. Please like and subscribe. And hit that little bell, too. That does some magical stuff. Thanks, guys.